The Lord be with you.
With your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you.
Jesus addressed this parable to those who were convinced of their own righteousness and despised everyone else. Two people went up to the temple area to pray. One was a Pharisee and the other was a tax collector. The Pharisee took up his position and spoke this prayer to himself. O God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes on my whole income. But the tax collector stood off at a distance and would not even raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast and prayed, O God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, the latter went home justified, not the former. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The one who serves God willingly is heard. We are reading now in the part of the Gospel of Luke where we go from parable to parable to parable. And at the beginning of almost every parable, there's an introduction that tells you to whom Jesus is talking. In this case, it's those who were convinced of their righteousness and despised other people. So we get the Pharisee. He comes in. He takes his place. Now that means he gets to go in the front, he gets to stand up, he gets to put on a good display of his importance. But notice in the gospel, what he says, or what Jesus tells us he says, he doesn't say out loud. Now I've seen representations of this in art and on TV shows, and usually the Pharisee is talking out loud, talking so everyone can hear him. But that's not what the gospel says. The gospel says he says it to himself. In other words, this is his prayer to God. Look at this tax collector. And then he hits him with adjectives. Adjective after adjective after adjective. It doesn't make any difference what it is. We love adjectives. We can separate people. We can make them something that we're not, something most likely that they're not, with adjectives. I, on the other hand, the Pharisee, thinks to himself and says in his prayer, I'm perfect. I do everything right. I do exactly what I'm supposed to do. Look at me. I do everything according to the rules. He says to God. Now we do this, right? You see somebody you don't like, and you lean over to your friend and you say, look at that individual, or something is going on that you think is either really good or is really bad, and you lean over to your friend and you say, did you see what happened there? And we all pretty much expect the same thing. We all expect the friend to agree with us. Nobody says to somebody, look at that individual over there, with the expectation of the person they said it to is, why don't you have a little compassion for people and not act like that? You say it to somebody because you expect that somebody will agree with you. And that's what the Pharisee is doing. He says it to his friend because he expects his friend to agree with him, except in this case, the friend is God. And God doesn't agree with him. It is very easy to decide that we are very righteous, that we do everything right like the Pharisee says he does, and that if you don't do everything right, and then for the Pharisee, that's everybody who isn't him, who doesn't do anything right, they're wrong, they're bad, they're, give whatever adjective you want to have, for them, they're the they, they're the somebody else, they're not the us. But the tax collector says, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. Well, that's us. That's everybody. Nobody gets to escape that label. Nobody gets to escape that adjective. Jesus tells us that. Everyone falls short. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone sins. So the tax collector says, I'm just like everybody else, and I need your mercy, God. And so who's the one who goes home justified? The person who, when he says something to God, says the thing that needs to be said, have mercy on me. And who goes home humbled? The guy who says, hey God, did you see that guy over there?